Hello, my name is Ben Hovland, and I'm a commissioner with the U.S. Election Assistance Commission, or EAC. For election administrators, the challenges associated with running elections have never been more difficult. As the Federal Clearinghouse on Election Administration, the EAC is working to provide information and resources for election officials and offering whatever support we can at the federal level to help state and local officials administer safe, secure, accessible, and accurate elections. As part of that, we've organized this video about the U.S. Digital Response, or USDR, which is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that helps governments and organizations respond quickly and efficiently to support the critical needs of the public. USDR leverages a network of pro bono technical expertise and modern resilient technology to address and uncover solutions for common systematic challenges that public servants are facing. Leaving them better equipped to deliver services and support to millions of people nationwide. In 2020, we saw USDR assist a number of election officials around the country. We are fortunate to be joined by a great panel to discuss USDR's work to support election officials. First, we've got Alex Elaine, who is the Chief Technology Officer and co-founder of USDR, where he oversees the development of technological tools, automation, and infrastructure. Alex also co-led USDR's elections program. And prior to USDR, Alex served as the Director of Engineering at Dropbox. We're also joined by Commissioner Michael Pipe, who is the current chair of the Board of Commissioners of Centre County, Pennsylvania. The commissioners in Centre County appoint personnel, supervise county offices and programs, and contract on behalf of the county in a variety of program areas, including elections. And finally, Cami Foote is currently a senior subject matter expert with the U.S. Elections Assistance Commission. Prior to joining the EAC, Cami administered elections for 14 years and served as the clerk, recorder, and registrar of voters for Inyo County, California for 10 years. As an election official in Inyo County, Cami worked with USDR to improve the service to her voters. And also Cami has served or volunteered with U.S. Digital Response as a member of USDR's governance team, helping connect governments and NGOs to pro bono assistance to address their community's critical needs. As you can see, this should be a great conversation. We're going to start things off with a little bit more information about U.S. Digital Response and a look at some of the tools that USDR has worked on to support election officials. Alex, if you want to kick us off, tell us a little bit more about USDR, and I know you're going to show one of the great tools that you worked on.
Absolutely. Thank you for that great introduction. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. So let me briefly talk a bit about USDR. So we were started back in March of last year, kind of born out of the COVID crisis. Our initial vision was just, we were people who wanted to help. And we started, there were some folks who had previously served in government. They were hearing from their friends who were still in government asking for advice, and technologists who were wondering, what can we, we're not going to solve a pandemic, but maybe technology can help. And early on, we found that there were ways that we could be of use. We started, counting hospital beds and figuring out how to help people schedule COVID tests, and delivering food to folks who are stuck at home and worried about even going to the grocery store, the homebound, the elderly, folks like that. And we, as we were doing this work, we realized this wasn't going to just stop, that COVID was going to be here for a little while, and that technology could play a role in helping with that. That moving from a lot of work in government and nonprofits was done in person, shifting to helping folks make that remote transition, helping move service delivery online. And we continued the health work, but we also started to think about what else is there where things are being done in person, being, just becoming much more difficult. And so the election, we realized that's a huge in-person event, and it's going to be really hard to do that in these conditions. And we said, well, let's start thinking about how we can help with that. And so we started working with election offices to figure out ways to support them. And one of the projects that I'll be showing you came out of that work. One thing I want to mention about our work is we also try, whenever possible, and we take talented technologists and we ask them to solve immediate problems and also think about, can this work be replicated? So whenever possible, we're trying to figure out tools that can be reused. And so the project I'll show you is something that actually started in one county, but has now been redeployed in multiple counties and could be potentially useful to other counties as well. One thing I want to do real quick, so Commissioner Hovland, I think already gave you the great introduction to what we do, but just to repeat that briefly, our focus is on taking really highly skilled technologists, folks who are experienced, seasoned veterans of industry, who understand modern technology really well, and figure out how to quickly deliver services to the public, partnering directly with governments and nonprofits. A little bit about just the impact that we've been able to have over the last year. We've worked with about 36 states and territories. And I think we're now over 300 projects. That's just a little bit out of date. And we've worked with over 7,000, or we've had over 7,000 technologists raise their hand. And of those, we've deployed about 800 of them. We're actually pretty selective in who we deploy on projects. We interview all of our volunteers before putting them in place. And we've had a pretty even mix across cities, states, counties, and nonprofits. So that's a little bit about us. I want to shift to talking a bit more about the project that I'll be demoing. It's our project to help with poll worker management. This project originally came out of work that we were doing with Harris County in Texas. They want a clery for their student poll worker program, and we were really privileged to be able to help with a small part of that, which was some of the back-end tooling for managing all of the poll workers. And we realized that this is, of course, a project that any election office that's doing in-person elections is going to need is some way to track down, to keep track of their poll workers. And so we started to generalize that and deploy it for other counties. So in just a moment, I'm going to actually take you through a demo of the tool. But before we get into that, I just want to give you a little bit of a high level of how it works. So the idea here is to help you from the beginning to the end of the life cycle. So to help from having folks sign up as poll workers and being able to do that pretty seamlessly online to actually, we have facilities to help compute how much you should pay them based on their roles and things like that, and everything in between. So being able to manage communication with them during the run up to the election season for training and testing their qualifications, things like that. The tool itself is built on top of a piece of software called Airtable, which is think of it as a combination of a spreadsheet and a database. But what it does is it allows us to bring all of the data into one place. So you'll have your poll workers, your precincts, your polling places, all of that data will be together, not across a bunch of spreadsheets. And it's all interlinked. So you can very easily see reports and data about the system and about your poll workers. You can find the gaps, green assignments, you can find where you have everything ready to go, and then you can use that to communicate directly from the tool. So let me go ahead and switch to the Airtable itself. So just a quick overview. So you can see here across the top, we have a bunch of tabs. The staff tab is where your poll workers actually, you can see their names, you can see their contact information, you can see their self-reported precinct, you can see if they want to do a half day. All the other key information about them is here. There's quite a lot that you can do, and you can also use this to track your workflow. Have they been vetted, for example? Have you ensured that they're ready to go? We have your precincts, and you can associate your precincts. You can see here we've got our different poll workers, our Jane Does and poll worker and other people, just for anonymous purposes, associated with each of the precincts. You can have your judge of elections, your inspector, and you can see whether or not you've got everyone filled out for each one of those. There's actually a nice gallery view that sort of shows you. You can quickly kind of see the gaps. You can see if you have balanced party participation, for example, all at once. So it kind of gives you this nice summary view. And then you have your individual polling places with the associated precincts, the address, and then all of the, in this case, the key thing is you have all of the information that you need to contact folks at each of those polling places. And I'll get to that in just a moment. And then there's a few other tabs here. You have, I'm not going to get into all of them in detail, but you have the ability to get quiz results, to track training, track some of your equipment, and then we'll get to the pay report as a demo of that in a minute. It's pretty neat. So I just wanted to show you how easy it is for somebody to fill out and actually become a entry in this record. So rather than having a PDF that you have to have somebody fill out and then manually copy and paste that data. Oh, hello, Ellie. Got a friend here. You can, here's the actual form itself built in. I've already filled it out, so you don't have to watch me fill it out, but you can see it has all of the key information that you'd want for someone to submit. This is all customizable, by the way. So one of the things I will mention is it's very flexible as a tool. So when we work with folks, we usually will understand your workflow. So if you need something a little bit different than what you see here, we can add new fields, we can adjust the wording. Those things are very straightforward to do. So I'm going to go ahead and I've selected I'm only available for a half day in the morning. Go ahead and submit that. And if we go back over here, you'll see that I am already in the database. There was no manual work required. And so I can then, on the back end, I can say, okay, I want to assign Alex, I'm going to be the judge of elections in precinct 7. I can just go over here, I can find my name, and I can just click that. And now that assignment has been made, which is pretty straightforward. So the other thing I'd mentioned is the ability to communicate with your poll workers throughout the election season. So the way that works is we basically do the equivalent of a mail merge within Airtable. So you can see here, there's a set of apps. One of them is called communication. We have different emails that have been kind of pre-configured. Obviously, this will likely be customized based on the specifics of your situation, but it's very straightforward. The email text is just in line here, you can see. In this case, we're sending an email from the precincts table, and it will show to everyone. There's a staff emails field here, right here, that's computed based on all of the assignments. So for everyone in a particular precinct, they'll receive an email, and it will give them their assignment. So it will tell them who the judge of elections is, majority inspector, minority inspector, et cetera, what their polling place is. So all of these fields are being pulled out of Airtable. Like I said, it's kind of like a mail merge out of these tables here. And then it will just get sent out to them. So this is a really straightforward way of doing mass communication. There's also, there's multiple emails that can be added. So an email focused on just confirming that people have signed up. And then we also even have the ability to do kind of last minute emails. So if you have an emergency appointment, we actually have that set up here with the emergency appointments table, and you can assign people the last minute and communicate with them. So that kind of gets you all in the lead up to the election. Afterward, you can actually run a final pay report. So we have a table of, let me close this briefly, pay rates for the different roles, and how much time a half day of service should count for. And then we can, using the assignments to the different roles you saw earlier, so people can be assigned to majority inspector, minority inspector, judge of elections, et cetera. Then we can run a report and it'll just get filled out here. So let me do that now. It'll just take a second. We'll go to the tools and then run final pay report. And here we go. And you can see that it just automatically fills this out. And for each of our anonymized folks, and for me, you get, based on their role, what is their election pay? And it looks like I'm going to make $150 today. So that is everything I really wanted to show you about the tool. A couple of points to make. So one is that this can usually be deployed in a matter of a couple of weeks. The process would be, you reach out to USDR, we understand your specific workflows, because we found that everyone is a little bit different, and that's okay. That's one of the nice things, is this can be quite customized. We work with you to customize it to your needs, and then help you learn how to manage it independently. Airtable is a really simple tool. Like I said, it's very similar to a spreadsheet, so a lot of people find it very quick to pick up. And in terms of cost, all of USDR's work is pro bono. The tools themselves behind it do have some cost. I'd say the total value, total price is probably in the order of a couple $100 across an election season, depending on the size of your election office and staff. It could be a little higher, potentially even a little lower. So that's how that works. And I think that's all that I was going to say about it. So yeah, we've found that folks really like using it. We've had a number of counties that have used it across multiple elections now, which is really great. And if you're interested, please reach out to us.
Well, thank you for that, Alex, for the presentation and telling us a little bit more about USDR and showing us the poll worker management tool. That was really great. I believe next up, Commissioner Pipe is going to share some about the scheduling jot form that USDR helped Center County with. Commissioner Pipe, if you want to go ahead.
Absolutely. So thank you so much, Commissioner. I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and to everybody at the US EAC. It's really been a privilege to see the dedication you've all shown in the many years as we've led up to some important elections, and as we remind everybody here in Center County and across Pennsylvania, there are important elections this year. And so we want to be on a footing to be able to help encourage as many people as possible to participate in our democracy. And so when Center County found, through whatever it means it might have been something on social media, an email that was sent to us about USDR, we were really excited. And their whole mission and philosophy was something that we really resonated with at a time in Pennsylvania when we had a new law that was passed in 2019 called Act 77. And it really allowed for universal vote by mail. It also allowed for the opportunity for people to cast over-the-counter mail-in ballots, which essentially is early voting in a sense. And so we wanted to be, in a way, a leader in Pennsylvania to establish ways that during a pandemic, people could have the opportunity to safely cast a mail-in ballot in person over the counter in a way that was safe, secure, and did so in an orderly fashion, so that we were doing it with social distancing in mind at safe locations, and wanted to give, again, people the opportunity to know that they were doing this in a safe and secure way. So we partner with USDR in a really exciting way to leverage two very low cost, as Alex mentioned, platforms. These solutions were, again, as Alex said, about $100 or so each to set up. And so we used a jot form and Calendly. And essentially the Calendly is sort of the meat inside the sandwich, where we have a jot form on the front end that basically filters out people to make sure that these individuals can actually vote in Center County. The last thing we wanted is individuals showing up at our early voting site not being able to vote. So that jot form up front, and I'll walk you through that, was so helpful, making sure that they could vote in there, so they didn't get there and had to be turned away. The next step is, once that filtering occurs, we send folks over who are eligible to the Calendly. And Calendly is a very easy program, as I'll walk through here, to select the time and date that you want to cast your in-person mail-in ballot over the counter. And then finally, after you confirm your date, we actually give people the opportunity to fill out the form and print it out, essentially, and bring it with them. So I want to walk through this jot form up front. I think it's important that this is really built for Center County in Pennsylvania, but it can be very much easily leveraged to any elections office across the country. And if at all anybody is interested in it, I'm sure that US EAC can let them know, or USDR can let them know. We're happy to make this available to anybody, essentially copy and paste the back end of this and share it with folks. So essentially, as you've seen on the screen here, the big thing we want to do is make sure that folks that are registered to vote in Center County, again, schedule the appointment and then complete the mail-in or absentee ballot. Big thing that we wanted to make sure folks were registered. So if somebody is not registered and they click next, it basically takes them to a place where they can register to vote. If they are registered to vote, there are more options, again, as the filtering goes on. One of the things in Pennsylvania and in many states across the country is, if somebody is living overseas, or they are a member of the military serving overseas, there's a different form that they can submit. And of course, it's very unlikely that somebody living overseas would vote early in person, but we still wanted to use this as an opportunity to get them to the right place that they needed to go. So if they click yes, again, it takes them right over to the information that they need. It's very intuitive as well. If you open this up on a mobile phone, it's very intuitive as well. So if somebody selects no, they're basically saying, great, congratulations, you can vote there. All of this text is easily formatable. So you can change this to whatever you need to be, but we elected to put some information in there about how long it might take, a little bit about the process itself. So people were understood the fact that they would get a packet of materials and then they would return that materials after they were done voting. And again, we were just encouraging people to make sure that we were being safe during the pandemic. So again, once that is finished, it heads you over to Calendly. The very nice thing about Calendly is essentially just one screen. And again, it's mobile friendly as well. Again, all of this is editable. And on the back end, election offices can actually elect the time frame. So you can do 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes. We elected to do 15. We were able to get it down to about, our staff was able to get it to about 10 minutes, but we wanted to leave a little wiggle room in between. Also, we know that in Center County, which is the home of Penn State University, there's a lot of students that attend here, but they're actually registered outside. So we wanted to, again, filter those students out up front, but then also give the opportunity again to remind folks, even if they kind of ignored that front end, please make sure that you're registered here in Center County. So this is just a demo site as well, but this is, you click on any of the dates that you're free, and this has all of the availability. Again, we just wanted to create a demo for today, but as shifts fill up, you would be able to see, there's 1 of 4 available, there's, etc. So we have the increments here. It confirms it. So my name, and this is all public information, by the way. I have this on my website. Folks want to reach out to me whenever, but it preloads it for me. And so essentially all that information goes in there. People can elect not to do a text message if they don't want to, but the email is really critical, because what that does is that pushes out to somebody's email the calendar information. They can then download that and add that to their phone, their Outlook, whatever it may be. But the text messages also are really valuable because there's reminders that can be sent out to folks to remind them about the appointment. So we schedule the event at that time. It then is going to redirect me over to the second jot form. And this is really where voters are able to put in that information. Now, if they elect to say, I don't have time, when they get to the early voting site, they'll have the form available. But this really, again, is able to filter folks out. So in Pennsylvania, with Act 77 that was passed in 2019, anybody that's a voter could elect to do a mail-in ballot. And again, we have that there, but some folks feel, you know what, I'm going to be out of the area. I feel more comfortable going with an absentee ballot. Either one that they click on will have this question here. And again, this helps to pre-fill the form. But again, we have 2 big reasons for why individuals might have to fill out an absentee ballot. If I would click continue there, it would send me over to the absentee ballot application, but we're going to select mail-in ballot. And then what that does, again, is it leverages a jot form in a really transparent and helpful way, where essentially what jot form does is it takes a PDF form, and on the back end side, and USDR was so helpful with this, was basically to line up any information that I'm typing here corresponds to a form over on the PDF. So as I fill this out, and I'm just going to put in my information here and talk a little bit, it is filling it on the other side. And so what this leverages is it basically is, and I actually want to point out some of the things that we were able to do with this is, some people were concerned about, what if somebody's 17 years old and they try to register to vote? You can't actually select a date that is before the age of 18. So you'll see as I go back a little bit further, need to go back a little bit more, they then start to appear and you can click on that. So that's just one of the unique things that we were able to do to make sure that we're not having folks put that information in if it's not correct. But essentially, this is just helping people fill out their application correctly. We also knew that one of the things that we wanted to do was we wanted to make sure that people weren't getting to the front of the line and not having things filled out correctly. Again, from a social distancing standpoint, keeping people safe, we wanted to make sure that was happening. So we're just going to go through here, any city. And one of the things that would also happen is we wanted to make sure that people knew that if they're registered to vote, again, it's a friendly reminder, wanted to make sure that they're registered in Center County. It's an optional thing to let folks know how long they've lived at an address. And then in Pennsylvania, you need to either put your Pennsylvania driver's license number, social security number. And again, that's not saved anywhere in a database. For us, that's basically just transposed right onto the form. We also have an option in Center County in Pennsylvania, and again, other states might have this, where people can elect to fill out on the form the opportunity to vote a mail-in ballot. This is a really fun thing here, that before people actually print the ballot, they can preview the PDF, and that would open up. Also, if they elect not to preview it and just generate the mail-in ballot application, that then pushes out to the computer the option to download it and have that available. So I'm going to do Not a Robot, preview the PDF. It creates the PDF, and again, has that available. And so again, all of the information that I typed up there is available. The fun thing that we wanted to make sure that people didn't forget about, and again, this is the kind of the added benefit of having USDR assist us, was we can't take electronic signature. So once the voter has this form finalized, they are reminded with that yellow form to sign it. And also that was a cue to our election workers to make sure that they knew to make sure that that signature and date was there. So I'll finalize it here, generate that, and then essentially that is available. What that also did is when I put my email address in a little bit earlier, that pushed out to my email currently a completed form that I have for my records. And then as those reminders come up via Calendly about the appointment, I have the form available that can be leveraged there. So again, it reminds them to print it out, bring it with us, and download it there. If I click on download, it's downloaded as a finalized PDF. So all in all, USDR was an incredibly helpful organization to help us leverage the tools that we didn't know about, Jotform and Calendly, but it really allowed us to, again, rise to the occasion during a difficult time to make sure there was more options for our citizens in Center County. Also, the thing I'll mention in closing is, as a commissioner, I'm always looking for cost-effective ways to do things easily and more easily. And we found other instances in county government broadly, in our judiciary, human services, to leverage these same scheduling tools and making filling out a government form a little bit easier. So if you're a county official, if you're an elected official somewhere, appointed official, who would like to make scheduling things with constituents easier, or making forms a little bit easier to fill out and have ready for folks when they're coming in for needed services, please feel free to reach out to us. We'd be happy to help. Thank you so much for this opportunity today, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner Pipe. That was really great. I appreciate you walking us through that tool, and I can see how it made a big difference for your office and for your voters. Finally, Cammie, can you walk us through the website that USDR helped Inyo County with?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the many services that USDR has been providing to their partners is assistance with designing and building user-friendly and accessible websites with both the public and the back-end user in mind. So last year, leading up to the November 2020 election, recognizing the information ecosystem that we were in, as an election official, it was top of mind. How am I going to communicate to our voters in Inyo County the changes that they should expect with voting during a pandemic, whether it was in person, communicating online, or voting by mail. And so I was trying to think, how am I going to be able to communicate this clearly to our voters? So I also came across USDR. It was, I think, in August of 2020. And we put together our website using their template in under 2 weeks. So I'm going to share my screen. So this is the current Inyo County website. It is very customizable. You can have either 1 or 2 banners here. We opted to have a second banner so that we could communicate with our voters about CDC guidelines in real time. You can see that there's many different modules that you can communicate election results, how to vote by mail. Across the top, registration, the different ways that people can register, the different ways that they can vote. All of this is very familiar to election officials, but the way that it's presented is based on years of research by the Center for Civic Design on how people access information. And then on the back end, what I'm not going to be able to show you here today, but anyone who is able to update a Word form could easily update the content here on this website. One of the other benefits that comes with using the website template is a lot of the information is already pre-filled. That is universally standard across the country. You just have to modify it for your jurisdiction, as well as it comes with all of these civic icons, and you're able to implement them throughout the website. Going back to the front here, you can see these are familiar icons, and as the elections community sort of moves more into standardized civic icons, it can help voters recognize where to find the information that they're looking for. In addition, you can see that it links directly to social media accounts so that you know that you're going to official verified information, and then you can follow here if that's your preferred method of receiving information from the elections office. So again, as Commissioner Pipe had just mentioned, one of the things in a very small jurisdiction like Inyo County is you always have the budget consideration as to what you can and cannot do. This entire website was, I think it was $300 annually for the web hosting, and that was the only cost associated with it. The other benefit was being able to take all of the information that I was thinking about and channeling that in an appropriate way so that we can get the information out quickly and in a way that's organized as we're going through these changes and how we're administering elections. So I think it's just incredibly important that elections offices have information and tools so that they can provide what's needed to voters so that they understand the current rules that they're going to be voting under. So that is what I have as far as just the template. I think most people are familiar with websites, but this particular website, again, you can implement it in just a couple of weeks. And you have someone there on the USDR side who will walk you through it. There's user guides that can assist you as well. And there's no additional cost to be able to use it.
Thank you for that, Cami. I mean, those were all excellent tools, and it was great to hear about how those came together and made a difference for election officials and voters. You know, it really just stands out on how that can make a difference for your office. I think a lot about, you know, to me, good election administration is about good governance and customer service. And you look at all these and you think about how, you know, voters are interacting with local offices around the country, and you can see how it makes a difference. I'd love to jump into a couple of questions. You know, to start off, actually, you know, Commissioner Pipe and Cami, and we'll go in that order. You both mentioned a little bit about your counties, but it'd be great to hear a little bit more about them for those that are not familiar with Center County or Inyo County. Just a sense of your voting population size, responsibilities of your offices, and anything else you'd want to share. Commissioner Pipe, we'll start with you. I'll say that while you mentioned Penn State, I am prohibited from some Big Ten conflicts from endorsing them, but otherwise, I'd love to hear about Center County.
No, I appreciate that. And we have, you know, a really rich community here. We have 160,000 residents as our population, and we have about 110,000 folks who are registered to vote, and that fluctuates year over year depending on the election. But it's really a team approach when it comes to registering voters here in Center County. We've got great support from our election staff, from folks who have volunteered their time, whether it's to you know, be poll workers, vote by mail openers. It's really a great approach. But we see typically turnout as any other county does, you know, from 30% on your municipal years all the way up to 80% during presidential years. So I think it's really indicative of a medium-sized county here in our country. But again, we have a good sized amount of registered voters who are excited about democracy.
Thank you for that. And Cami, you want to share a little bit more about Inyo County for folks that aren't familiar?
Sure. So Inyo County is probably one of the most rural counties in the country, certainly in California. It is geographically the second largest county in California at 10,000 square miles, and we have about 11,000 registered voters, so very dispersed, which is why my focus on communication is so important, because we do have some voters that would have to travel 4 hours one way in a vehicle in order to access services directly from the elections office. And we do have typically high turnout. It's localized, and we have all of our presidentials are over 80%. A lot of times we're in the top 5 for turnout because of the communication that we have with our voter. We want to make sure that they can access service, that they do understand how they're able to vote. And then in terms of the second part of your question, I think Inyo County is representative of a lot of counties in California that are very small, and that we, in addition to running elections, have multiple hats. And in my case, I ran 3 county departments, including the clerk and recorder. So in between assisting voters with voting, I was officiating marriages. We were also providing services that had to do with environmental documents and a whole plethora of other kinds of duties and services. So elections was just one of many. So that's why anything that we can do to provide efficiencies within local governance is going to allow us to provide better public service overall.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that. Another one for Cami and Commissioner Pipe. Will go in reverse order this time. You both hit on some of the obvious benefits for election offices to take advantage of some of these USDR resources and assistance. Can you talk about any other benefits that you saw and how it made a difference for your county? Cami, if you want to start there.
Sure. So one of the things about working in local government, when I first came to local government, it was 2006, and the software systems, the 2 main software systems that we were using were based on DOS. So I actually had to relearn older technology. And I tell that because I think that's kind of the state of local governments in general. Even though we've advanced in 2021 beyond DOS-based programs, we're still a little bit behind the curve as far as adopting technology. And just being exposed to USDR, I had no idea the low code, low cost technological solutions that were available to me for project management, for even within project management within my own office, outside of actually serving voters, and the automation that's available to local governments. So I would just say that one of the benefits of working across sector and working with technology experts is you can bring all of that information into your office, become more efficient across the board.
That's great. Commissioner Pipe, would you add to that?
I would. No, Cami made excellent points. And I think the thing that I would add to it is, as we see resources get tighter and tighter in many cases, we are still advocating for additional resources from federal and state partners to run elections. But at the end of the day, an election worker or election directors and administrators are much like the MacGyvers of the world today, where they just need to make it work. They need to get duct tape, a pen cap, and just make it work. And I think there's something to that. It's a very rugged, just getting the job done. But I think it's sometimes a challenge to say to them, actually, there are really great things that we can also look at doing. And so it takes a little bit of time to, thaw the ice when it comes to that. But I think that one of the things that we saw was, as the systems worked, because we spent all this time planning, much like Cami talked about, you spend that 2 weeks planning for that website. We spent a few weeks developing this sign up tool and calendar form and form completer. But then actually to see it work was fun. It was a lot of fun. And so I think we were very cognizant to use that time to show the benefits of it and to then do a postmortem on how many folks were able to vote. We had about 2,000 people use that form, use that jot form and Calendly to sign up and cast their vote, early vote in person over the counter. And so I think it's taking that moment to say it's okay to be little hesitant about new technologies and utilizing them, but then celebrating the fact that they work and seeing how you can improve upon them. And I think, again, we've partnered with a lot of election officials across the state to make it through 2020 and seeing what works and what doesn't for 2021 and beyond. And as much as we can collaborate with each other and talk about the successes, best practices, and let folks know it's okay to try some new things and ask for help from time to time, I think we'll be in a much better place.
That's great. And as you mentioned there, Commissioner Pipe, I know resources are always a challenge. I talk about it more than I'd like to. One thing I remember, I think we were on a panel together at Bipartisan Policy Center. You mentioned that on one of these tools, you were able to realize a significant cost savings. I don't know if you want to reiterate that or share that story.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate you highlighting that. And that was something that when we're looking to develop this tool, and I think that's really how we found out about USDR was, we were considering putting an RFP out to develop the tool that we demonstrated. filtering system, calendar sign up, and then fill out a form to bring it with you. And we had some vendors prior to going out to the RFP that we were just talking with. We had one that quoted us $45,000.
Wow.
And, I don't even think, I really truly to this day, the product that they were talking about probably wouldn't have been done as quickly as USDR did it. They were fantastic to work with, the team that we worked with. And in addition, the cost savings, or as we talked about, it was a few $100s that we were able to set this up for. And so, I'll leave it at that. But I think sometimes,
It speaks for itself.
It speaks for itself. So yeah, thank you for reminding us of that, Commissioner. Thank you.
Absolutely. Alex, the stories that we were just hearing about from Center County and Inyo County, as we mentioned earlier, clearly made a difference, helped election officials, ultimately voters. You mentioned, or you presented on the poll worker management tool from Harris County, but can you tell us about any other stories or how USDR has worked with election officials to solve some particular challenges?
Absolutely, yeah. We found in our work last year and going forward, there are three main focus areas that we had in the election space. One was, as Cami so eloquently talked about, the importance of informing the public, especially in a time where there's so much difficult information ecosystem and so much change simultaneously. So we did a bunch of work in that space, not just on building the new websites, but also helping with auditing and making recommendations for existing websites. Not everyone needs to spin up a new site, but we can still come in and kind of apply design principles and make recommendations for best practices for accessibility, clarity of communication, things like that. Our second kind of focus area was really around optimizing internal operations. Poll Worker Project is a great example of that. As my cat is very friendly, excuse me. And we also found that, there's a lot of places where, election officers were dealing with a bunch of inbound questions and communication, and we could apply some of the same principles around optimizing sort of the voter's journey through that process to say, where can we best inform them of this kind of information? And then when it hits you can't answer that question up front, helping organize and manage some of the systems on the back end. And then the third area was really scaling and optimizing, either vote by mail or mechanisms like Commissioner Pipe was talking about, to really help people more efficiently come in and schedule themselves rather than having to do that in an ad hoc fashion, especially during COVID. And so we found that in addition to tools like that, we also were able to help again on the back end with, a lot of places really hadn't had to deal with the kind of scale or scope of the number of absentee ballot requests they were receiving this year. And so things like helping with just figuring out better workflows and having people email a scanned PDF, or if it was still being emailed, kind of helping with automatically routing it so that they could get it out of their normal inbox. Maybe you previously just had a shared inbox that everyone was using for everything, and now it's being flooded with absentee ballot requests, and you can't get your normal work done. So we were able to help with a number of those kinds of operations. One of our principles as an organization is we want to solve the immediate problem, and so we're very flexible in terms of what we do. We're not necessarily coming in with a pre-baked solution in mind. We try to work with our partners to understand what their actual needs are, and then break down the components where technology might be able to be additive. We know that technology is a tool, it is not the solution. The folks who are actually doing the work are the experts on this and really know what needs to be done. But sometimes technology can help make more efficient ways to do that work because we can come up with maybe ideas that are new technologies or tools that are out there that might be alternatives that are much cheaper or potentially just easier to use. And so that's kind of our general approach for these things. Of course, we also, as I said earlier, we try to find these things that we can then scale and share that are flexible, so we can customize them quickly so that it takes less time to actually get off the ground.
Great. Cami, going back to you've been an election official who worked with USDR and then a USDR volunteer. So you've worn sort of all of these hats, and in that USDR volunteer role, helping people around the country. What else would you mention to an election official who's watching this, thinking about if it makes sense for their jurisdiction?
I would just encourage any election official who has pain points to think about reaching out to USDR if they don't have an internal mechanism of addressing pain points in an appropriate way or an efficient way. After talking to local governments and nonprofits all across the country as a USDR volunteer, a lot of the needs that I heard were very similar across the board. And one thing that I do want to highlight is that it's not always a technical solution that it comes out of it. So a couple of the things that I've worked with USDR on as a volunteer on this side is working with organizations to evaluate off-the-shelf commercial products that would help solve the solution. So it would be no coding or anything like that, but helping walk through what the jurisdiction needs, knowing that these technologists are aware of what's available. And then another project that I worked on was actually writing an RFP to be able to provide the solution, and then recruiting different volunteers who were able to help evaluate the proposals for the jurisdiction. And the reason that that's so important and why I bring it up now is one of the barriers to adopting new election technology, including new voting systems, e-poll books, whatever it might be, is the procurement process itself. It's not something that election officials go through very often. It's very complicated. We're not always technologists as far as we don't know what to ask for and look for to be able to evaluate between different types of vendors. And so those are other solutions that USDR has brought to the table. And so I would just encourage election officials that if they are recognizing that there's something that they can do to better serve their community and they're just not exactly sure how to get over the finish line, that they might want to reach out, and maybe some of these volunteers in that 7,000 plus has the skill set that they're looking for to assist them. Because I know for myself, when I wrote the RFP in 2017 to purchase a new voting system, hadn't been done in my jurisdiction for almost 20 years. I would have loved to have had someone to just talk through that process and make sure that I was asking for the right things, both in the proposal and evaluating the right things on the back end.
Thank you for that. That's a lot of great points and good information. And really, I think it brings me back to Alex. And Alex, I was hoping you could discuss a little bit about USDR's plans going forward. Obviously a pretty new organization, but how USDR is looking to continue working with election officials. And again, I think probably most importantly, for any election officials watching this and if they want to reach out, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we started as an organization, a pop-up organization, but we're now, we've realized that there's just a tremendous opportunity to make an impact, a positive difference here. And so we're continuing our work. We have kind of three general focus areas. One is just what we call our rapid response program. That's kind of surge capacity in the midst of a crisis where there's, something that's changed in the world and it's really hard to deal with, and that team figures out how technology can be of assistance. The second area, just so folks know, is kind of in the space of economic stability. There's a lot of programs that have been spun up very recently, things like emergency rental assistance, that need technology support on the back end to actually help them work properly. And so our efforts there around supporting those systems. And then the third area is elections and supporting election officials and with their technology needs. And so we're excited to be continuing that work and expect to continue to try to find free and low-cost tool choices. We want to work in the open, so share our knowledge and work in an open source way. So as an example, the website that Cami was just talking about, that's all open source. There's nothing that's secret about it, which is really nice. And so if you're interested in working with USDR, or even if you're not sure and you just want to reach out and learn a little bit more, we'd love to hear from you. You can just go to our website, which is usdigitalresponse.org. And there's a big contact us button right there. And you can just click on that. It's got a short form with contact information, things like that. And then we'll reach out to you shortly and connect. Our process is pretty simple. We start with an introductory call. We understand kind of what your needs are. We talk through what USDR can, how USDR might be able to help. If there's something that's really a specific immediate project that's potentially something you'd like to work with us on, we go through a short scoping process. We have specialists who really help tease out the details of the project and what the objectives are and how technology might be of assistance. And then that can also actually help refine your thinking if you're not quite sure what you need. That's part of the point of this, is to be a kind of a mutual exercise in understanding the shape of things. And then from that, we make recommendations. Either we have something that's maybe off the shelf that we can help you with that we've already built, or maybe it's about deploying volunteers to help you solve that problem based on that work. And then after, usually our projects are on the order of weeks, 4 to 8 weeks is kind of around our sweet spot, which is why we like these reusable tools, because it allows us to really deliver a lot of value in a very short amount of time. So yeah, if you're interested, we'd love to hear from you. usdigitalresponse.org. Please don't hesitate to reach out. And we look forward to hopefully working with some of you.
Well, thank you. Well, this has been a very informative conversation. Thank you all for taking the time to discuss USDR's work with election officials. Again, if anyone is watching this and wants more information, check out US Digital Response website at usdigitalresponse.org. And thank you.